Welcome back from lunch. Find a place where chocolate or sweets are within reach, if you so desire. Hopefully you brought a beverage back for your learning this afternoon, something from lunch or water or coffee. You may have seen as you came in that we're going to revisit some of our learning about coaching from last time and thinking about who we are as coaches and what is our identity. So last time we had taken pictures. You had said, I am a blank coach. And we took those photographs and we had them on the screen as you were coming in, kind of as a way to reflect on some of that work. My name is Shoemaker, and my colleague here is Christi Gilbert. We are doing the Artful, Becoming Artful in My Practice coaching session this afternoon, and maybe I need to turn this back on too. Let's see. Our purpose today is to create a solid identity of who I am as a coach and identify ways in which I might grow as a coach. Our learning intention is to utilize a coaching model continuum to identify your capabilities and behaviors. So last time we really lived at that identity level. Today we're going to talk a little bit about values and beliefs again, and then we're going to move to the capabilities and behavior level. Our success criteria will be, I can refine my this I believe statement to include what I've learned about capabilities and behaviors. Our agenda for today is connecting with our community. We'll review DILT's nested levels that we talked about last time. We'll think a little bit about using identity as a filter. We'll dig into building trust and then reflect on capabilities and behaviors, refine our this I believe statement, and wrap up with a reflection. So just a reminder, everything that we have in our slides is in your Google Classroom for this session. Your code is on that blue sheet if you still need to join that. If you're having tech issues, it's likely a white listed issue with your district filter. And if you talk to your district tech people about that, they should be able to help you. Just let them know it's through the Kent ISD. Also, the Wi-Fi connections are around the room if you still need that information. Okay, so to get us connected with each other, you'll also notice over here, we're going to add to our strategy harvest as we go through the day, so you can see not only what the content learning is, but also strategies that you might be able to take back and use with you. One of the things that's often suggested to do at the beginning of a session is something that we call stir the room. And that means that you get up and you meet other people. And we won't ask you to do that frequently during the session, but it is good to get up and get to know other people and to kind of meet other people that you might want to collaborate with along the way. In order to do that today, we're going to number 2. If you would pause, I'll give you your next directions. Sometimes we like to do some cross-content activities, and the next activity we're going to do we pulled from the math realm. However, you can use it in whichever realm works best for you. This activity is called Which One Doesn't Belong? So if you look at these 4 items in this picture, one of them does not belong. It's your job individually to think about which one doesn't belong and why. So why do 3 of them go together and one of them does not fit?
There are no right or wrong answers.
Thank you. Yes, there are no right or wrong answers. There's actually multiple perspectives you could take with this picture. So for each item in here, there is a reason why it doesn't belong. There is a reason why it does belong. So within your group, you could have multiple answers for which one doesn't belong. So think about the attributes of 3 and why one of them does not fit, and then dialogue with your group about which one does or does not and why. Okay? Go ahead and take a few minutes to do that. If you would begin to bring your conversations to a close, finish your sentence, and think about something that you may want to share with the group. And I'm going to pull a little bit from my EL world where we're going to give you a sentence frame, and you'll say, I noticed, or you'll say, I think that something doesn't belong because. Make sure you put that linking word in there. And then if you are following up from someone else, make sure that you either say, I agree because, or I disagree because. So we always want to link our comments to someone else's comments to make it more of a conversation rather than a one-sided
dialogue or a one-sided monologue, okay? So do I have someone that would like to start? Go ahead.
One thing I noticed is that 3 of the items have, are we still talking about this, right?
Yes,
3 of
yes.
the items have speckly colors, and the donut does not, and so I eliminated the donut.
Okay, so the donut does not belong because it does not have speckles, and the other 3 do. Mm-hmm. Good, thank you. Agree, disagree? You agree? Okay.
I agree because when I looked at this screen, I could see the speckles. But now I agree.
So you found the TV was a helpful support for your learning. Good. Good call. The other ideas, yes?
I was going to say, I also agree because the countertop is also speckled.
Oh.
So then those other 3 pieces we have to put on.
So you noticed the background as well. Yeah. Okay, we'll take one more. I heard a lot of differing perspectives. Would someone offer up a different perspective? Yeah.
I said that I would get rid of the hamburger bun because I could eat the bagel or the donut with a cup of coffee. But I wouldn't eat a hamburger bun with a cup of coffee.
So you filled, in your mind, you filled the cup with coffee and decided those 3 things belong together, the donut, the bagel, and the coffee, and the hamburger bun does not. Anything to add on to that perspective? Yes?
I agree with what was said. Now that she's identified that, we from here couldn't really tell what that was.
Okay.
So we had, I guess some of our conversation was maybe not the same as theirs, but now that she said that, I agree with her thinking.
Okay.
Now that I have a more clear picture.
Which one was hard for you to identify?
The little, I guess it's the hamburger bun, but like from here it almost looks like the top of a muffin or...
The circle without a hole in the middle? Okay, yep. So it could be a muffin, it could be a hamburger bun. Okay. So if this was a muffin, which one would you say does not belong?
One of the ideas that was shared here is that the cup would not belong because it was not edible.
Ah, okay. So here we could take out the cup because you can eat the other 3. Good. So thinking about this, we're going to continue to go through Dilt's nested levels. And one of the things that we're going to take a look at is our identity. And we use our identity as a filter. However, there are people around us that often have other viewpoints of what our identity should be. They often have different viewpoints than what we do on things that we should keep in our workload or things that we should filter out. There are people around us that have differing viewpoints on ideas that we should hold as part of our identity and ideas that we should filter out. So the important part to think about here is not only what is my perspective, but what multiple perspectives might I need to consider as I think about refining my identity and as I think about using my identity as a filter. So Sarah's going to walk us through that a little bit further. If you would thank your group members and return to your seats, we'll move on to the next part.
So if you will reflect back to our learning from LCN Day 1, at the end of September, perhaps you brought some of your materials back with you, perhaps you were not here with us, but we did draw this picture of Dilt's nested levels. So you took a blank piece of paper and you kind of followed along as I sketch this out. In the middle of your table, there is a purple-ish folder, and on the right side of that, I believe, is also a copy of something that I gave you last time to help you kind of think through those Dilt's nested levels. And it looks like it got copied really quick, so forgive us. One side is a little crooked. I think both sides are a little crooked, but one side is specifically a little bit more. So one side says influence of different levels of experience on learning. And it talks about, it's all the way at the back. Sorry, I got stuffed last yesterday. So it talks about big E and little e at the top being the environment. The little e being the where, the physical space, how the tables are set up, what the lighting is. But the big E being the social, emotional, and cognitive environment. more of the culture. Then you'll see after that the behaviors, which are the specific actions or reactions made by a person. What we wrote that as relation to practices. After that you'll see capabilities, which is how do I apply this? What directions are given? What mental maps or strategies are related to this? Then there's behaviors, which are beliefs and values, which relates to the why of learning. Why do we do this? What is the reasoning behind this? What is the motivation behind this? Is there permission behind this? And then the biggest bucket is identity. Who am I? Who am I now? Who do I need to be? And on the back are some of those guiding questions. So when we talked about DILTs, we talked about, and I don't know what I did with my, thinking of them like nested dolls, Russian nesting dolls perhaps, or stacked cups. Really trying to get towards that higher purpose of all of these things go together to create a greater purpose. A greater purpose in our lives, a greater purpose in our job roles as coaches, and our identity. So we also looked at DILT's nested levels like this, looking at from a top-down pyramid perspective, like the purpose is your underlying or your biggest piece, and the identity builds from that, and that there can be influences from the purpose up to the environment or influences from the environment down to the identity. And how you control those things and plan for them and be intentional about them in your workspace. So really knowing our identity is important because we often filter our actions and behaviors, values and beliefs through this. On this screen is a simple street drain, right? We identify that as a filter, a way that the water is filtered out. It's catching the leaves, probably not catching all of them, but it's a filter through which the water is running. Your filter might be, or your street drain identity might be, I'm a coach. My job is a coach. I'm an instructional coach. I'm a reading coach. I'm an interventionist / instructional coach. People see me as a coach. Oftentimes there are deeper filters to consider. So while we're walking down the street, we might often see this, but we don't often see the other side of it, where sewer systems and water drainage systems are starting to put nets on the other end to catch everything before they run into the water basin, right? So some leaves were caught, but there's another level of a filter. What is the net catching? What are the things that are going on under the surface of that street drain that might play into your roles? So what other levels of filter are you putting in place to protect your job, the role that you have as an instructional coach or coach with the people in your district, the students, the families, the other staff members? This really gets to your values, beliefs, and the greater level of identity. And those filters are important because we want the water to come out like this. And we know many days in schools where there's not a sub, or it's the day after Halloween, or such, that it doesn't always look as nice as this picture. And you're pulled in other ways. So we're trying to help you think today about centering that identity so that you can be as close to your desired state in terms of the stream as possible. Thinking about what is your higher purpose? How are you going to stay true to that and not get distracted or polluted by the junk that's coming through the other levels of filter? So to begin, we want you to think about what is something you may have filtered out of your practice in order to stay clear to your identity and purpose. It might be an idea from somebody. It might be materials. It might be the ways that you use your time that you've been very intentional about. Take a moment to stop and jot. This can be on the back of your blue paper, on a sticky note, wherever you have space. What is something you have filtered out? And I'll give you about 2 minutes to do that, and then we'll move to the other side of the screen. After after you've jotted something that you're intentionally trying to filter out or already have filtered out of your practice, what might be something you are currently doing that you need to be further filtering out? What intentions might you set to further that out, and how might you go about doing that? So somewhere near your first stop and jot, make another note about what is something you intentionally are working towards or will work towards, and how might you go about doing that?
We're going to move on to the next part, which is about building trust. And some of you were in our session this morning where you read Jill Jackson's approach to, or her perspective on how to build trust with teachers. And what we'd like you to do is, in your packet, you have a sheet that says building trust. Will you hold yours up? Looks like that. Thank you. And in there we have put 3 different perspectives on building trust. One comes from Jill Jackson, one comes from cognitive coaching, and the third perspective comes from the essential practices for elementary literacy coaching. So if you would go ahead, we're going to take some time to read through those. Before we do that, though, think about some ideas that you have about how you are currently building trust with teachers and administrators in your building. We're going to take about 2 minutes to share at your table. What are some things that you are already doing to build trust, and how have you found that to be either successful or challenging in your context? So go ahead and take a minute to talk at your tables about that. Go ahead and move into the document. As you move into the document, keep this question in mind. We're going to always refer back to this idea of your values and beliefs. We talked a little bit about using your identity as a filter. Now we're going to move up the levels a little bit and address some of our values and beliefs. So you really want to focus on how might we build trust with teachers in relationship to our own values and beliefs. So Jill Jackson might say one thing, but it doesn't fit with my values and beliefs. So does that mean I need to adjust my values and beliefs? Or does that mean that I need to filter out her ideas? Cognitive coaching might say something about how I should build trust with teachers. If that doesn't fit with my values and beliefs, then I have a decision to make. I either need to adjust my values and beliefs, or I need to filter out what cognitive coaching says. So as we go through this, the reason we're giving you multiple perspectives is for you to really consider what your values and beliefs are, what you hold as core values and beliefs, and what values and beliefs may need to be adjusted, what information can you assimilate into what you value and believe, and what information you might need to filter out. So there are 3 perspectives here for you to consider. At the top of your paper, you have 3 different think marks to use as you go through this. So this is a close reading or a focused reading. Use those think marks given to you at the top of your paper to mark up this page as you read. It is also linked in the PowerPoint slide if you are one of those people that say, but I want a clean copy, right? I'm like that. I want a clean copy. Mark this one up. There's a clean copy available for you online. Okay? We'll give you a few minutes to go ahead and read through this. Again, use those think marks and think about what fits with your values and beliefs. Okay? So go ahead and read. Dialogue at your tables. And we're going to come back to this focus question. How might we build trust with teachers in relationship to our values and beliefs? So if you would go ahead and start by sharing, allow every person at the table to share one of their notations and then continue to share further as time allows. But make sure that each person at the table has a chance to share one of their notations and have a dialogue around it. And then if there's more time, go ahead and continue the dialogue around other notations that you've made. In relation to this question about how do we build relationship with teachers in relationship to what I value and what I believe is best. Okay? So you can go ahead and begin your conversation. And we are going to begin to segue from, we looked a little bit at identity with Sarah. Then we looked at building trust through the lens of our values and beliefs. And we're going to move up the levels a little bit into looking at behaviors and capabilities. What you're going to do right now is in your purple folder, you have a green sheet that looks like this. titled Marie's National Anthem with Natalie Gilbert. So if you'll pull that out. And you're going to pretend like you're doing a little sort of classroom observation. And we'd like you to write down notes for what you see the coach doing and what you see the coachee doing in this video. What are they doing in terms of trust? How do you know that trust is either there or not there? What evidence do you see? What evidence do you see of behaviors? And what evidence do you see of capabilities? Just start to take some notes as you watch the short video between a coach and a coachee.
So you'll have to forgive us a little bit on the quality of some of this video. I think you can see enough clearly to see what's going on. Maybe. Try that again.
And salute the men and women serving our country with our national anthem. Please welcome, as voted by you, the fans, our winner of the Toyota Get the Feeling of a Star promotion, Natalie Gilbert.
Take a minute to finish up your notes. What was the evidence of trust or lack of trust between coach and coachee that you saw? What was evidence of behaviors and evidence of capabilities?
So how might you use this video to think about your role as a coach or to help your staff think about the role of a coach? 2 or 3 people who might share out some analogies or some discussion they have.
We talked about his physical proximity. Didn't walk away when she seemed to get going, stayed there longer, but kind of to the side in case when she did need more time. Did he just give a little bit?
So his presence was important to her and her success, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes?
I think she was willing to be helped. Sometimes as coaches, you may get that coachee that doesn't want to be helped. Mm-hmm. So she was clearly willing, but she was very nervous, anxious, whatever, that made her stop. So just seeing that relationship that the coach stood by her side and she was able to get through it.
Mm-hmm. Even if they didn't have prior knowledge or experience with each other, right? Yes?
The coach didn't know it all. He knew the words, but you could tell he was not the best singer. But together they were able to not just get through the song, but Kelly was saying, like, in the participation of the crowd and the feeling that we can do this together was kind of like that message that you felt like.
So they rallied the rest of the arena to get behind them, basically, and grew the collective efficacy of what that looks like. They recognized where she was in her struggle, and everybody was waiting for something to happen, and that coach stepped up, and then they all said, we can be a part of this, right? Anyone else? Yes?
Trying to add on some thinking to that. Of course, trying to connect it back to our coach position. What was really maybe an added layer to us as coaches is this was a very public display of struggle. It was very evident to everyone in that room when she needed help, and then it was offered. And that the process itself, kind of like Jill Jackson said, in the process, trust was built. I don't think they knew each other beforehand and they were embracing at the end. But for coaches and teachers, we don't always see the struggle unless it's an open door policy in classrooms. So even though we might be able to swoop in and provide support, which in turn can build trust, sometimes getting into even know in those places, this can be really tricky as well. And that's up in the back of my mind as I'm connecting to our coaches.
And I would say, like, very similar to that, we've struggled with some of that ourselves as a team to say, we've always looked through the lens of cognitive coaching and approaching a person and saying, where is your struggle? Like, what do you need to work on? We'll be here alongside you. And Jill Jackson has offered us another take on that to say, everybody gets coaching. And you create a common goal. And you look at where people are in relation to that goal. That's the privacy, of coaching. That's the part that you figure out where they are with their guidance and take them from there. But that we can all rally around something as a common goal. There's school improvement plans in place for a reason. There are building or district goals in place for a reason. There's PD offered across the district in one area or two or three areas for a reason. And so how can we honor the cognitive coaching and still rally the crowd around something that's common? And so that's taken our thinking to a new level.
Follow back to around that everyone has a coach. The answer might be different too, but what does that, like, where does that communication, who communicates that in a district, and how does that look? That's something we're working through in Wyoming. Like, we want everybody to have a coach, even the coaches have coaches.
Right.
But what's step one?
Yeah, I think it's really getting clear about that purpose and identity, right? And some of you know Kim Van Antwerp, who was a former part of our team here at the ISD and is now a principal aide at elementary in Forest Hills. But she came from teaching at Texas, like some of you mentioned on resumes this morning, group resumes, right? And she said there was no question. Everybody had a coach. You had a science coach, you had a math coach, you had an ELA coach. Everybody had a coach. The NBA players don't say, I'm in the NBA, I no longer need a coach. They say, hey, coach, what can I do to get better? Watch me do this layup 120 times in a row, right? Like, I know I need to practice. I know I need to consult with outside perspectives to get another view. And so to her, like when she said that about her teaching in Texas, it opened my eyes. Oh, my goodness, what if we had that here in Michigan? What would that feel like? What would that sound like? How would we communicate that and that be accepted? And so I think our work in getting clear about our identity and purpose has really helped shape our thinking and the message that we take forward to your districts, both from the administrative level to the coach level to the teacher level as well. So we hope to provide some clarity for you and allowing you to think and dialogue around that. The next thing that we're going to do is kind of dig back into that who am I as a coach lens. So we have several things in your packet. We put the coaching essentials, which you may have the GELN essential packet taken straight from there. If you don't, there are the coaching essentials that have been identified by the state of Michigan as part of the early literacy coaching model here in Michigan. You have the early literacy coaching model. I was going to say module. It's model. The graphic really for the state is on the back there. But this inside is not just these essentials as they're laid out in the coaching practices. It is a continuum, kind of to be reflective on yourself and say, where am I in relation to this? And there's an ineffective use, a developmental use, and an accomplished use for each of the coaching essentials. So today we're going to focus primarily on the coaching essentials 1 through 3. There are a total of 7. We will do most of the rest of them next time. We're going to skip over 4 because it really talks about a multi-year initiative. Coaching is a multi-year initiative. And we're going to look at 5, 6, and 7 next time. So if you have the coaching model, the coaching practices, if you are a middle school or high school person, we printed the standards for middle school and high school literacy coaches right from ILA. So we have that up here if you're interested. We printed about 20 copies, so there is one for everyone if you'd like to take that. If not, don't worry about it. We didn't want to complicate it for you. But and then I think that's kind of where we're going to start. We are going to use the Michigan Elementary Literacy Coaching Continuum as a lens to look through ourselves at. So basically self-evaluating yourself to say, where am I? Not that this is your district evaluation, but to say, how might you identify as a coach right now, and in what areas might you desire to grow as a coach in relation to this? So taking that larger black and white packet, read through sections 1 through 3 and kind of self-assess. Notate where you might currently be in your coaching practice. We're going to give you time and space to do this, like about 15 minutes to do the reading part. Feel free to mark it up, highlight, write notes on sticky notes, whatever works best for you, and then we'll come back together and take it through the next step. What questions might you have?
You're not reading the introduction.
No, you do not have to. We included the entire thing for your reference. We know some of you are familiar with some of the coaching practices already. Others might not be. But usually using that continuum tool is really the main focus. Yes.
Starting on page 6.
6 is kind of like the research. Then the continuum for that one is on page 7. Same thing. Then 8 is 2 with the research. Wherever you are is fine. We are going to kind of move on to the next step in this process about thinking about how might I grow as a coach. So take a moment to look at the notes you wrote to yourself, or the highlights or the marks you made, and say, what does my data say about who I am as a coach? Then prioritize 1 or 2 areas in which you might intentionally focus your efforts to grow as a coach. So whether you're starring those or circling those, find a way to notate 1 or 2 areas. We're going to take about 1.5 minutes to do that. With your priorities, we'd like you to think about what you're noticing about yourself as a coach, what you're noticing about the coaching essentials that you might not have noticed before, or something that's challenging you. We want you to find a partner who you can have a trusted conversation with. and set a purpose for your conversation. Whether that's a coaching conversation and you're going to have a dialogue and would like some feedback that way, or if it's a consulting conversation and you'd like the person to give you additional thinking rather than just pausing and paraphrasing. Clarify which type of dialogue you want, and then reference the question stems on this bookmark to kind of support your dialogue. So share something with a colleague that you are thinking about that maybe you haven't thought about before, an area that you want to be intentional about. The bookmark is really from the National School Reform. It's called the IMAP, or Individual Monthly Action Plan. So some questions to consider might be, why am I planning to focus in this area or do this? What will happen, or what will I hope will happen as a result of my change in coaching practice? How will I initiate this change? What supports do I need? And how will I know if I've made progress?
Both the original IMAP document and the bookmark are linked in the PowerPoint slides for you to access if you would like to use this in further coaching conversation.
So find someone near you or someone across the room who you feel comfortable with. Kind of partner up and get in that coaching stance where you've taken away the barrier of the table and you have your notes perhaps in the book and the bookmark, and then set your purpose. Do you want some consultation, or do you want some pausing, paraphrasing, coaching conversation to help your thinking? And I think we will take about 6 minutes to do this part. So about 2.5 minutes per person and time to switch.
It's always good to think about where we're at, what our strengths are, and what areas we need to continue to grow. So as you kind of go forth into the world over the next month or so, maybe pick one thing that you want to really hold within yourself and focus on in your practice that you want to improve as you go. The last part that we're going to do together today is refining our "this I believe" statements. You remember last time we listened to one of the podcasts from the "This I Believe" archives, and we wrote our own "this I believe" statement. Today we have added some layers, hopefully added some layers to what you believe about teaching and learning and coaching. And so what we'd like you to do is pull out, if you have them with you, pull out the "this I believe" statement that you wrote last time. If you don't have it with you, you can go ahead and craft a new version of your "this I believe" statement. Keep this one with you. Put it in your purple folder with the rest of your materials, and make sure that you bring that folder back with you next time. As you read through your "this I believe" statement, think through the additional layers that we have thought about today. We've thought about filters and how our identity acts as a filter. We've thought about building trust, and we've thought about some of our capabilities and behaviors as coaches, where we are, as well as where we might be on a continuum. So go ahead and start to think about what you believe, and start to craft or refine or revise your "this I believe" statement, incorporating in the things that you have thought about and learned about today. And we will give you about 4 to 5 minutes to work on your statement. Okay, so go ahead and you can start with that.
So as our time together comes to a close, we would like you to turn to the back of that blue sheet or wherever you're keeping your notes about your learning today, and take a moment to reflect on what is on the screen. So please individually and silently jot down your thinking in that blue square on the back of your sheet.